We are ending the end of the long day today, and it's been an amazing day. We have just going to talk to us on busy is a four-letter word. I've listened to her talk on this many times, and I tremendously enjoyed, and I hope you will as well. So before we get started, some small things. Our sponsors for today, Redgate Software and SQL Gene Training, as well as Sessionize. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you. Also, thank you to the many allies we've had on Twitter and on various social media who helped us get an audience and make this happen. We really appreciate it. Today's sponsorship money is actually going to a good cause. It's going to Foster Family Alliance of North Carolina, a charity that Tracy Borgiano has been working with for over 2 decades and made a huge difference there to the lives of these kids. So Redgate is donating $25 per talk to this charity on our behalf. And once again, thank you. And anyone who wants to know more about the charity, there is the website and the emails. Lastly, a disclaimer that this is personal stories from community. This is not a substitute for any medical advice or treating any problems with the doctor. Please read the session description. If anything is causing you stress, seek out help as soon as you can. Our code of conduct is found on the URL there. We have not had anybody behaving badly. We are grateful, and we hope that will continue. That said, I'll hand it over to Jes for her amazing talk.
Thank you, Mala. All right, let me share my screen. Make sure I'm sharing the correct screen. Excellent. Can you see my slides?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Thank you to everyone that is taking some time out of your Friday or perhaps Saturday to join us. I know it's been a long day. Whether you've attended all the sessions, a couple, or this is your first one, I appreciate it. And thank you to the presenters for putting this on. This is, I believe, the third mental health day, third annual. And I remember that first one in 2020, which was sorely needed. And so I like to support all of them that I can. So for those of you that I have not met yet, hi, my name is Jes. My pronouns are she and her. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I work at Microsoft. I'm a product manager. I'm on the SQL tools team, so helping build all of those tools you use to connect to your SQL Server products. In my spare time, I also love running and hiking, eating a lot of good food. I live with my partner, Tim, and we have our little circus of pets here, Jack and Mitt and Archie and Reggie. I promise if you follow me on Twitter, you will see more pictures of them. And if you do want to connect with me, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, and I also have a GitHub repo, which has code samples. And also, that's where I put slides, demos, etc. from existing talks. So you'll find these slides here later. So what I am here to talk to you today is I want you to stop being the person that when asked, how are you doing? The first sentence out of your mouth is, I'm so busy. It seems that in the world today, we value our lives by how much we are doing, not how we mentally and emotionally and physically are. And I come from a place of being a busy person. I used to say, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, and I would be that person. But that also was exhausting. I think about a few particular times in my life when I really let it build up. Back in, I want to say 2007 and 2008, at that time I worked full-time. I also was going to school part-time to earn my associate's degree. I was also a very active member of the Junior Chamber of Commerce in my area. Not just being a member, but I was actually on the board of directors and ran events. Then on top of that, I planned my wedding, and I was trying to work out. And I'll be honest, I was exhausted all the time. Fast forward another, 5 to 6 years, I graduated school, but I was working full time. And I had gotten involved in the SQL community. So I was now spending a couple nights a week blogging. I was also traveling to present at user groups and SQL Saturdays. I was training for my first marathon. I remember one Saturday in particular, I ran 17 miles that morning and then went to a family wedding that afternoon. That was a long day. And again, I was at this point where I was just trying to keep up and do everything. And even in early 2020, right, working full time, attending community events. I remember SQL Saturday Cleveland at the end of January 2020. But at the same time, I was also planning to move across the country from Wisconsin to Colorado, keep up with my friends, keep up with the dogs. And all of these are particular points in my life when I remember feeling like I was always busy. And also I was always exhausted. And also I was miserable. And what it really helped me to realize was that being busy could be described as a disease. So let's think about that word. Disease stems from dis and ease. The definition of disease is a condition of the living animal or plant body or one of its parts that impairs normal functioning and is typically manifested by distinguishing signs and symptoms. If you think about it, that can be being busy. Again, being physically and mentally and emotionally exhausted, always being tired, not able to perform normally. And this isn't just your fault, right? Like, we are in a world of having non-stop stimulation. You think about it, from the moment you wake up until the moment you fall asleep, and you're probably not getting enough sleep, let's be honest with ourselves, we're just bombarded. We have our smartphones that are constantly alerting us to another phone call, another text message, another social media post, another adventure ticket go up for sale. There's another news article. There's another person that had posted something. Then we have our computers. We have televisions. We have tablets, social media. There's always another post to read. There's always another news article. There's another TV show that everyone is talking about that you have to watch. There's one more Instagram photo to read. But we become so busy doing those things that we don't take time to think about how we actually feel about them or how they are making us feel. Are we thinking about, are these things I actually enjoy? Or am I doing them because I have to? Are these things that actually make you happy or fulfill you? Or again, are you doing them just because it's what you've always done? It becomes, and again, from personal experience, it has gotten to the point in my life where someone will ask me, how are you? And I'd be like, oh, I'm so busy. So I am here today to help you get away from being the person that says, I'm great, but I'm busy, or just, oh, I'm still busy, to be able to answer that question of how are you doing with a feeling and with a thought and not with just that one phrase. Again, we spend a lot of time these days, measuring our worth by how much we are doing rather than by the value of what we do. Think about that. We measure our worth by what we're doing rather than the value of what we're doing. And this is manifested in a lot of ways. I'll talk later in this presentation about how we live in a yes culture. Part of it is social media and how everyone, or I won't say everyone, but there's a feeling that you have to post all of your events and pictures to Facebook or Instagram. Those are the ones I use. There's other ones, TikTok, that sort of thing. But are you posting these pictures just to get your likes and get that dopamine hit, or are you doing it because you actually enjoy it? Definitely things to think about. And there we go. Okay. So I want you to be thinking in the coming months about, instead of being busy, being bored. When is the last time you were bored? And I'm not talking like just sitting at the doctor's office waiting for something and having a scroll through all the pictures of your trip. Like, when is the last time that you just had time to sit down or walk and let your mind wander without stimulation? No screens, no phones, not even a book. When is the last time you perhaps sat in your backyard or at a park, just on a bench or a chair, and just let your mind wander or think? Or perhaps, again, take a walk, going for a hike, not sharing it with a screen, maybe sharing it with people. We need that time. Like, as humans, we need that disconnected time. Without time to be bored, right? Like, our mind is not disconnecting. We are not truly thinking about things. We're not being as creative as we could be. And tons of studies and blog posts that I've read over the years talk about how it's not until we're truly like disconnected that we become at our most creative. So when we're bored, which is opposite of busy, we get to think about who we are. We get to think about what we want. We get to problem solve. We get to create. We have our best ideas. We think of new things. So what we need to do is work on a plan for getting from being busy to having time to be bored. And I'm going to help you with that because I'm a problem solver. So the first thing that I always like to ask is, right, why? Why am I doing so much? Throughout time, right, as I get these periods where I think, oh my God, I'm so busy, like every minute is scheduled, I'm so packed, I don't have time on the weekend to just sit down and read a book. Like, I have to stop and ask myself, like, why? Why am I trying to do so much? Have I overcommitted myself to things? Am I trying to avoid certain situations by telling people I don't have time for them, by doing other things? What's going on? One of the common answers is, well, I'm a yes person. It's so easy, right? It's really easy to be the person that says yes. It's easy to say yes without questioning the value of what you're saying yes to or the importance of what you're saying yes to. It's so easy to just sit and think about yes. People like being told yes. When someone says yes to you, you get a warm fuzzy. When you say yes to someone else, you get a warm fuzzy. But when you just immediately say yes to everything, you probably aren't thinking about or realizing what all goes into saying yes to that event, to that opportunity, to whatever it is. One of the things that I'm going to help you with in this presentation is how to say no. Perhaps the reason that you're so busy is the new keeping up with the Joneses, looking at what other people are doing and thinking, I need to keep up. In my office here at home, off on this wall over here to my left, I have a combination whiteboard and little board, and I have a bunch of quotes that I keep on my corkboard that I've loved for years. And some of them are things like, comparison is the thief of joy. And another quote is, there are two ways to build the biggest building in town. Number one is to build the biggest building in town. Number two is to tear down all of the other buildings you see around you. Trying to do things to keep up with other people is a terrible idea, because everyone is fighting a battle that you don't see. Everyone has a certain set of circumstances in your life, and you're probably only being exposed to a small fraction of them, especially when you're thinking what the neighbors are doing, what someone at work that you see for a few hours a week is doing, what someone in your church or social club that you see a couple hours a week is doing. But we are all guilty of comparing ourselves to others. You might see that someone that you work with just got a promotion. So you think, okay, I need to take on more projects. I need to do more work. I need to work more hours to do the same. You might see a friend that you have who works full time. They're, president of a club. They make fresh cookies for the school bake sale. And you think, how are they able to do all of that? You see a neighbor who has this beautiful, fantastic garden, tells you about these vacations he's been on recently, and you compare yourself. But again, don't compare yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy, because everyone is fighting a battle that you have no idea what it is. That person that you see, your neighbor gardening and going on vacations, might have some sort of illness or terminal illness, and they're trying to do things with their life that make them happy. People might be having family problems at home. They might also be feeling like they're just a busy person. So we need to stop comparing ourselves to others. We need to think about what really, truly matters to you and what will make you happy. And again, don't compare yourself to others. Don't let other people's successes be your failures. And a third reason, and this was one that hit me really hard maybe 10 years ago or so, is I'm busy because I don't know what I want. Trying to figure out what I want to do next in my career needs to be taken on all of the many projects that I had, everything from, again, working full-time and writing blogs to signing up to write books. We'll talk about that story in a little bit. Attending presentations, joining nonprofit groups and clubs in the community, trying to build that up, not having a clear vision for the future. And why did I have that? Because I wasn't taking time to sit down and think about what I enjoyed and why, what I did not enjoy and why. And having a 5-year plan, having a vision for myself. So if you, like me, have ever been in a place or are currently in a place where you are just signing up for everything because you don't know what you want to do, I will help you learn how to quit things you are currently working on and start thinking about what you do want to be working on. By the end, after this presentation, if you have some things you'd like to go and learn about, then I hope that this quote will really hit home for you. I want you to remember that you are still a human being, not just a human doing. This is from a blog post. I can share that link on Twitter having this presentation. This was actually one of the really good blog posts I read that eventually helped me realize I wanted to craft this presentation, and thus I did. All right. So I have told you that I'm going to give you some tools in this presentation, and I am indeed. First, go back. I want to give you specific steps on going from being busy to being bored. We're going to work on steps 2, how to prioritize things, how to declutter, and then how to consistently say no. So first, before I get too deep into this, I'm going to plug a book called Essentialism. I read this probably back in 2010, 2012, something like that. And it was a game changer for me. In this book, the author, Matthew McCown, talks about going from that graphic on the left side where you're doing 10 things, but you can only put 10% of your energy in them, into doing one thing and putting 100% of your energy into it and doing it well. And I have adopted this philosophy over the last 10 to 12 years. And in our lives, it's almost impossible to do literally that one thing and do one thing 100%. But I've at least been able to get to do one thing 80% and maybe 2 other things 10% each. But I have shown this graphic to managers at work. I've shown it to people I have been on projects with. I've shown it to people in my running groups, because this is what we are essentially striving for. The essentials of essentialism are, you go big on one thing. You have one priority, not priorities. Again, when everything's important, nothing's important. And realizing that, that one important thing can be better than 10 trivial things. So let's talk about curing this disease of being busy. So this is kind of a 3-step process. And we start by literally sitting down and writing what you're doing, spending some time thinking about what you truly want to be doing. And then out of all of those things, prioritizing, right? What is the one thing that will give you the most joy, get you farthest in your career, bring you closest to your family? Whatever it is that you want to be doing, what is the one thing that will get you there? So identify what you're doing. And I'm going to actually bucket this into a couple of different groups, because that one thing can apply to work. That one thing can apply to literally our home and our relationships. That one thing can also apply to hobbies. And all 3 of those are incredibly important foundations in life. You're going to be busy, but perhaps not fulfilled if you are just working and taking care of the house. We all need that third leg too of hobbies, fun, learning, socializing. But it's also possible to overcorrect on that too. So when I sit down and I think about this, I'll think, what am I doing at work, right? How much am I doing at work? And this is always consistently the hardest place where I struggle to live this life of essentialism, because it's so easy to say yes at work, and it's so hard to say no, and it's so easy to misunderstand how much work something will be at the beginning. But I also think about at home. What am I doing at home? Yeah, there's a relationship. There's actually taking care of a house, right? There's the regular tasks like cooking, cleaning, laundry, yard work. Could be children or pets. I've got 2 dogs and 2 cats, and that's work on its own. There's house projects. There's also time with family and time with friends, and those are all important. And then there's hobbies, and this can be anything, right? Sitting down to read a book, riding a bicycle, knitting, brewing beer or wine, yoga, volunteering in the sequel community, right? Blogging, speaking, it could be travel, right? The first step, again, the first step in going from busy to bored is to try to figure out all the things you're doing, all of the things you're involved in. That's a big list, right? My list at times in my life has been ridiculous. I'd like to think I'm doing better now. Then the next step, as I said, is to sit down and identify what you want to be doing. But let's start, with work, right? And that's, again, taking on all of the projects or too many projects. This is something that I have gotten a lot better at prioritizing in my life because, again, when I finished college, I was just getting started in the sequel community. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't know what technology I wanted to work with, so I did all of the things. But I progressively really narrowed down and gone from, those 10 arrows to like one, because I started, I knew I wanted to work with SQL Server, worked consulting. I eventually joined Microsoft to work solely with SQL Server and get closer to how the product's built. Within Microsoft, then I joined our commercial software engineering org so I could work almost solely with Azure. And then after that, I knew that I wanted to work most closely with customers to help build the product. So I joined the product group as a product manager. But I was consistently sitting down every year and wondering, what am I doing? What do I want to be doing? And how am I getting there? At home, right? This is something where, again, there's a ton of responsibilities. Like I said, family, pets, cleaning, house projects. And it has, by sitting down and thinking about all of those things that I do, it's really helped me prioritize things, right? Like I know that family time is important. So that always has to be something that comes first. I know that I need to eat well. And also I love cooking. So I prioritize that, right? I literally sit down on the weekends and I come up with a meal plan for the week, come up with a grocery list, do some meal prep every week. I'm like, I know I want to eat healthy and I know I love cooking and I want to be doing that in the kitchen because that is something that appeals to me. And so I knew, right, like that's one thing I want to focus on. My pets, obviously I love having dogs, love having cats. I know they take time, but for me, it provides such a value to my life to have a running buddy, have hiking buddies, have little cats that snuggle on the couch with me at night. So again, that takes time and effort to realize like that is what I want and I have to make time for it. And in terms of hobbies, I used to be the person that would try a new hobby every 6 months, honestly. I eventually, thankfully, have realized that what really truly fulfills me is being active and making that my hobby. And so I've gone from having an innumerable amount of outdoor gear and also crafting projects, which, by the way, I'm terrible at. Please don't ever ask me if I know how to sew because I don't. And community, right, like joining community organizations, community groups, like all of those hobbies. I really, over the last 5 to 10 years, have realized that being active is what fulfills me, gets me outside. I can join running groups, biking groups, hiking groups to meet other people and be social. And that is what I decided I wanted to be doing. So this is the second step in the exercise that you should take. Again, go from all of the things you are doing and combine that with what you want to be doing. Those two things might look totally different, right? You might say, well, I'm sitting on, the PTA or some other board, but what I really want to be doing is learning how to have a garden and beekeep and being outdoors more, doing that kind of thing. If what you're doing right now and what you want to be doing are two very different things, It's not the end of the world. You just have to come up with a plan to get there. And then you pick the priority. And again, as the Essentialism book says, it is a priority, not priorities. When everything's on fire, nothing's on fire, right? When everything's important, nothing's important. So let me talk about, again, some of the priorities that I have picked with work. I deliberately chose Azure and Azure SQL and to focus on that. And even that is a big bucket. Many times in the last, 5 to 10 years, I've thought, I started my career with SQL Server reporting services. Maybe some of you in the audience are watching this once upon a time have watched one of my early reporting services presentations. So why don't I get back to it and get involved in Power BI? I've thought, there's so many great data products out there in Azure. I could probably become a data architect and I could learn about the SQL and Cosmos and Databricks and I'd work with customers to build all of that. But then I realized what I really truly love is working with SQL. I love working with Azure, so I decided to stick with that. At home, it's become a matter of, again, limited time. Time is one thing we don't get more of. Most important thing is going to be family. Second most important thing to me is spending time cooking. Third most important, spending time with pets. Now there's a whole list of things that aren't going to get a lot of time. And I've realized as I've gotten older, and please don't tell my mother this, but cleaning the house, I like having a clean house. It was revolutionary to me when in the before times, before the pandemic, I traveled for work. I don't do that so much anymore. But trying to balance working, traveling while working, and then coming home at the end of the week and having a weekend to hang out with the family and go out with friends and go for a run, run the dog. All of that was not compatible with having to spend a couple hours cleaning the house. And I had someone clean my house for me. And sometimes that's okay, right? That's how I was able to say no to things. I realized limited amount of time, I can help someone else out in making a living. And so I chose to have someone clean my house. And I will tell you, that was a big day for me. To this day, I still love having someone clean my house. But it's something I can do, absolutely. But it's one of those things where I've chosen to let that go. You might think, other house projects. I know when I have a certain area of expertise and I can do things like some lawn work, painting the house. But there's also, again, much earlier in my life, my first house, I was like, I'm going to do every house project myself. I'm going to be so good with power tools and all of that. I'm going to learn it all. Not possible. Didn't even love it. Second house, gave up on that along the way. I will do some small projects, but I know now it's okay to call in a professional or a contractor. Some people I know definitely wanted to eat healthier and eat out less, but they don't love cooking. They'll do things like the HelloFresh box meals, right? Best of both worlds. So it's just kind of a matter, especially at home, sitting down and being like, I really need to prioritize these things and let these other things go or have other people help me with them. And then when it comes to hobbies, again, this is something where I've had an endless list of them throughout my life. I always have to go down and narrow that every year. For example, in this year, in 2022, I got really back into running, trail running, went multiple times a week. In May of last year, I did this beautiful 20K trail race in Southern Kentucky. In December, I did a 50K trail race in Tennessee. And that was amazing, but that took a lot of time away from the house and a lot of time away from the family. This year, I said in 2023, my priorities are going to be just hiking and lifting weights. Right? I'm getting older. I need to keep up my strength. And also hiking is something that more people in my life enjoy and are happy to do with me. And so I picked that instead. All right. So now how do we go from all of the things we're doing to what we want to do and then a priority? Well, the next thing we have to do is toss the rest out and quit doing things. Learning how to quit is probably one of the hardest things that we have to do, and I don't think this is taught. This was never modeled well in my life. It's not something we have a lot of examples of, but we have to do it sometimes. Remember earlier when I said I had a story about writing a book? Here we go. A few years ago, I was asked to write a book by one of the technical publishers, and I was so excited. I said yes. I wrote a book proposal. It got accepted. I picked a co-author. He accepted. We wrote an outline. It was great. And then right there at that point in time, I got a new job. So here I was trying to learn my new job, spending more time working because I was on a new job, trying to keep up with family and friends, but then also trying to fulfill this book and deadlines, having chapters written, having them edited, having a technical reviewer. And I hated it. I was spending my nights and my weekends writing, not spending time outside, not spending time with family and friends. And I went to one of my friends that I really loved and trusted. And she said, just let it go. And it took me a while because I was like, no, I started this. I have to finish it. But then I also realized that I was miserable. And so I drafted an email one night saying, I can't do this anymore. Sent it, it was to my co-author and to the publisher. I was just like, I can't do this. I've switched jobs. I don't have time for this. I don't have the joy for this. Sat on it overnight, still felt the way in the morning, sent that email, didn't check my email again for the rest of the day. And I felt bad for about a week. But then in that week, I had time again, time to not come home from work and be stressed about writing, time to spend with friends, time to spend with family. And yes, there were some consequences, right? I've never been asked to work with that publisher again. I've never had the desire to write a book again because I didn't like the process. I didn't like the deadlines. But it didn't end my career. It didn't end my personal relationship with that co-author that I had. It just simply meant that this book, which we had a good idea for and did some work on, just didn't get published. And it's not the end of the world. Another recent example, in early 2020, right when all of the lockdown started, right, I had just moved to Colorado, was living by myself, working from home 100% by myself, and I needed to do something. I needed to feel useful somehow. I needed to get involved with people. So I joined this Oxford COVID-19 government response tracker volunteer project. We all got assigned a country every week. We had to check on what their policies were, enter them into this massive database that Oxford, the university in England, and the governments all over the world were using to help kind of guide their pandemic response. I loved it for about 6 to 9 months. It definitely filled a gap for me. But then I did make a couple of friends in Colorado. I had a new relationship and I was considering moving. By the time I moved to Kentucky, I realized that I did not have the time and the energy and the caring to continue doing that. So again, sent my email just saying, hey, I was enjoying this for a year, but my life has changed and I won't be able to take on any new assignments. And again, the world didn't end. I had more volunteers. They were very appreciative of the work I had done. I can now look back and say I helped contribute to this major effort. So yeah, generally when going to quit something, it sucks for about the first day or two. But remember, quit is not a 4-letter word. Busy is a 4-letter word. And if you're trying to decide if there's something, if you're sitting there, there's something in the back of your mind where you're like, ooh, Jes has hit on a point here. A good question to ask yourself is, if I was not already invested in this project, how much time, money, mental energy, physical energy, emotional energy, would I invest in it now if I picked it up? Another way to look at this was if I didn't have this opportunity, how much would I be willing to sacrifice in order to obtain it now? And that's a really good lens to think about. Again, with going into the book, like going into writing that book, I didn't want to give it up because I was already invested in it. But I knew, 3 months into the process, when my life had changed because of this new job, if they had come to me that day and said, would you write a book? I would have said no, because I don't have the time and I don't have the energy. So frame it that way. And when you're getting ready to quit something, just follow some basic, decent human interaction guidelines. Be honest. I started a new job. I am not enjoying this. I do not have time to write this book. I've moved across the country. I have a new relationship. I don't have time to do this volunteer assignment every week. But be polite, right? It's not your fault. It's not the fault of the other people or organizations involved. And then be firm about the expectations for exiting. Make a commitment like I'll finish up this week of work, or I'll finish these things. I'll do this, and then I'm going to be done. As I said, send the email, shut down the computer, walk away for an hour. But you can do it. You can quit things that are not bringing you joy, and you can quit things that don't get you to your end goals in life. And again, don't burn the bridges with the people. And most of the time you won't. But that's a big thing that it took me a long time to learn. And so again, if you're really busy and you're not doing the things you want to do, and there's something that is in the way, and you don't want to do it anymore, be honest with yourself, be honest with the people that need to know that, and give yourself some grace to let go. And then the next step in the process, and the one that everyone thinks is the hardest, is learning how to say no, and say no regularly. And that can be for all the things. It can be saying no at work. It can be saying no for hobbies. It can be saying no to things, with family and friends and a million things around the house. And I feel like we're not taught how to say no very well. That Essentialism book that I mentioned was one of my first introductions to multiple ways to say no. Some of the examples that I'm giving here in this presentation come directly from that book, because I have found them so useful in the years since I read them. The first thing that I will say when learning to say no is separating the decision from the relationship. Denying a request to help someone is not denying the person, or it should not be. And I will say that if the person takes you saying no so personally that they get upset with you, they say bad things about you, they stop talking to you, is that really a relationship you want? It's not a relationship I want. And I can only think of really one case where I said no to someone and that has deeply affected a relationship. And again, I realized if that person's self-worth is so tied to a project I'm involved in, I probably don't want to be friends with that person. I don't want that relationship. So again, separate the decision from the relationship. Now, how do we say no? Sometimes, remember this, no can be a complete sentence. Do you have time to help with this? No. Can you pick up this one extra task? No. Should we go out to this concert this weekend, when you might have a weekend of beautiful things like sleeping in, drinking some coffee, reading a book, and gardening planned? You can just say no. Again, if the person that is asking you is that hurt about it, maybe that's not a relationship you want. But what about when it's not as simple as no? Here's some other strategies. Maybe if someone asks in person, you can count to 5 or 10 in your head before saying anything. Don't just automatically say yes. Don't just automatically say no. Take a break and think about it. Number one, this gives you a moment to evaluate, do you have time for it? how big is this request? Number two, it gives the person asking time to think, like, do I really need help with this? How much help do I need? That sort of thing. This is also really good. Well, to me, it was more effective when I worked in person in an office, right? I don't have that life much anymore here working from home remotely, but if you do still work in an office, you know, you get those drive-by requests. People come up to your desk or your key, they're like, can you help me with something? And you're there, hands over the keyboard, looking at a program, doing something, just giving pause rather than saying, yes, what? And looking at them like, give them pause. They might pick up that you're busy doing something. They might say, it's not a big deal. We can do it later. But just give it that pause. If that's not the correct thing, the soft no is good. No, but, or no, and. You know, getting asked out a lot with technical questions or things at work. This is an easy thing where it's okay to say, no, but I'd love to do it later, you know, come back in an hour or tomorrow if you still need help. This is a good one for something that does fit what you want to do and something that you can do. It just doesn't fit into your immediate moment or immediate day. And I've used this one a lot. Another great technique is to say, let me check my calendar. Isn't that great? It gives you time to pause and think and literally look at your calendar and decide if you have time to help with something. I've used this a lot for over the years, like community events, volunteering, that sort of thing. It's one of those where I'm like, oh, I kind of want to say yes because it's something I love, or I love this person, but I probably should say no because I know I'm committed to things. Like, let me check my calendar. Let me see if it can happen. Next up is one of my favorites. Yes. What do I deprioritize? This is one of my favorite techniques for work and being asked to take on new projects in the short term. It's great with, you know, managers of other teams. You probably know how much work you have to do and what's the most important. And then someone walks up to you, sends an email or schedules a meeting. Like, well, we need this done right away. They're like, okay, well, this is what I'm working on, A, B, C, and D. Which of those would you or would my manager deprioritize to make this happen right now? Or something like that. Just a really, really good thing to make other people realize that your time is finite. Your resources are finite, as are theirs. Another great way I've heard this rephrased is, what am I going to say yes to? And if I do, what do I say no to? Right? So you can say yes, but it has to be with this other sentence of what do I deprioritize? And last but not least, one that's very helpful to me in terms of empowering other people at work, or I've used this a lot in like the SQL community and blogs and presentations and collaborating with people and speaking at things. I can't do it, so that's my no, but blank may be interested. This is a great way to, what is the phrase that I've heard used, especially by Bree, lift others as we rise, right? This is a way to give opportunities to potentially lesser, well-known people in the community, or people that you know are looking for new opportunities or are really interested in the thing that you're being asked to do. Again, make sure that the person that you're recommending also knows that it's okay to say no, but this is a really effective thing to do if an opportunity comes along that you either don't have time for or are not truly passionate about, but you know someone who is. So I hope those are a few useful strategies for ways to say no. Remember, you can say no and regret it for a few minutes or hours, or you can say yes and regret it for days, weeks, months, or even years. So there are some, when we think about this, maybe start small, right? Decline a meeting that you don't need to attend. Get bigger, right? Say no to taking on something to help someone else meet their deadlines that they committed to. Maybe you get bigger and bigger and you just say no to a whole new project. You say no to joining a new committee, or you say no to doing any more big house projects around that time. So start small and work your way up. And last but not least, I hope this is the most important thing that you take away from this presentation. If it isn't a hell yes, it's a no. And this is something that, since I have debuted this in my presentation, people have come to me and reminded me of it. My partner just reminded me of this last weekend when we were looking at something new for the house. And I was like, oh, I like this thing. He's like, it's like you always say, if it's not hell yes, it's no. And I was like, you're right. It's not a hell yes. We're not buying that. And while everything in our lives will not always be a hell yes, right? Sometimes we have to do things at home that we don't love. Sometimes there are family events we simply cannot get out of. There are always going to be work projects that have to be done. If you get the choice, if it isn't a hell yes, it's a no. It's okay to be selfish sometimes. So with all of this, I hope this helps you get some ideas on how to be bored. And by bored, I mean time to let your mind wander, think, be emotional, be creative, not be glued to a screen, rather than being busy. Remember, think about what you are doing. Think about what you want to be doing. Pick a priority. Put things that don't fit that priority, and say no to things that will not fit that priority. Please do, if you are interested in this, read the book Essentialism. I have found it one of my favorite kind of self-help, better world books, and I'm not big on those things, but I loved this one. And last but not least, please feel free to reach out to me. You feel free to email me, feel free to drop me a message on Twitter. I love hearing from people, but I truly want everyone that has attended this to stop answering that question of how are you doing by saying I'm busy, and start answering it with I'm great, I just went on this vacation, let me tell you about it, or I'm fantastic, or I'm sad today, here's why. So thank you for joining. That's what I have today. Thank you again to those of you that attended multiple of the sessions today, and thank you to the organizers for putting on this fantastic conference.